Chapter 7 Blackmail. Selena leaned over and whispered in John's ear, "Also, if you tell anyone that I said this, I'll tell everyone about your degenerate mind." John's face turned pale. It felt like the air had left his body. Selena laughed. "Relax, I was just kidding." John was still paralyzed with fear, and suddenly Selena pulled him into a tight embrace, causing John to turn red. Selena laughed, squeezing John in her arms. "Such a precious young man. Of course I know you're more than that. You're not a devious criminal." John was sweating bullets. He didn't want Sarah to see him like this. To anyone else, it looked like a girl hugging her little brother or son. But to anyone who knew him, John tried to free himself from her grip. But he didn't want to touch her. In this state of thinking, his hands touching her anywhere was out of the question. "Selena, I can't breathe," John said, standing like a statue. "Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to overdo it." Selena giggled. John finally composed himself and wiped away the sweat from his brow, when suddenly, well, look who decided to show up. John looked over his shoulder. It was his mother, Miss Matthews. He should be at home doing homework, but instead, he brought 3 beautiful young ladies to his mother's restaurant on a date. John choked and began coughing. "What? Mom, stop playing," John scolded, but she ignored. "Who knew my son was such a player?" Miss Matthews said, holding her hand against her forehead as if she was going to faint. This made Selena smirk and cover her face. "She's my teacher, Mom, seriously," John frantically explained, causing Selena and Miss Matthews to laugh. "Of course I know that, Goofy," Miss Matthews said, pinching John's cheek. "Ouch," John whined. "Well, aren't you the confident one? Here I thought you were a shy young man, but you think you have what it takes to charm 2 adult women and my sister." John's eyes turned doughy as he frantically tried to explain. "Well, give him about 10 years and maybe." "He is my son, after all," Miss Matthews said, nudging Selena. Selena just laughed, causing Miss Matthews to laugh alongside her. John just stood there, exhausted. "Miss Matthews," Sarah said, practically tackling John's mom for a hug. John's mom almost fell over. "Well, hello there, Sarah. You must be starving." Sarah nodded. "Mm-hmm." Miss Adams flicked the back of Sarah's neck. "Hey, don't be tackling people, little girl." Miss Matthews laughed. "It's all right. I enjoy Sarah's energy." Miss Adams smiled. "How are you doing today, Miss Matthews?" Miss Matthews petted Sarah's and John's head. "Honestly, business is booming right now." Miss Adams clapped in excitement. "That's great. You must be so happy." Miss Matthews sighed. "Girl, I'm tired as hell." Miss Adams and Selena laughed. "I know that's right. Working at the diner can be exhausting, but this has to be hell," Miss Adams said, massaging her own shoulder. Miss Matthews nodded and laughed. "All in a day's work in the food industry." They both paused, then a man came and whispered to Miss Matthews. "Okay, hey Lou, this is my son John." Lou stopped in his tracks and turned to face John. "Hello, young man. Your mother talks a lot about you," Lou said, putting his hand out to John. Lou probably had a few years over Selena. He had short black curly hair and mustache, and he was pretty tall. "John, this is Lou Valentine. Politely introduce yourself." John nodded and politely gave Lou a firm handshake. "Hey, my name is John. I'm 8 years old, and it's nice to meet you," John said, looking Lou in the eye. Lou stared back before returning to his duties. John could tell that Lou was sizing him up. "I'll see you later. It was nice to meet you," Lou said before turning to leave. "Okay, let's get you fine folks a table," Miss Matthews said, petting John and Sarah once more before walking away. Walking through the restaurant, John saw many tables with people at them, some families, some couples on dates. Miss Matthews guided them towards a table by the kitchen door and sat them down. She handed them each a menu, then took out a pad and pen. "Okay, what will we have to drink?" Miss Matthews said, holding the pen in anticipation. "I'll have the Sprite and the vodka watermelon rum with 3 lemons," Selena said. "Geez, girl, this ain't a bar," Miss Adams said, causing Miss Matthews to laugh. "She's trying to get crunk. I dig it." Miss Adams shook her head. "I'll have the Coke with light ice. Sarah, what do you want?" Miss Adams asked, turning to Sarah. "I'll have the root beer," Sarah said. "John, how about you? Same as usual? You want the root beer?" Miss Matthews said, turning everyone at the table's attention towards John. Actually, can you make mine a root beer float?" John asked, causing Sarah's brow to raise. "Ooh, make mine a root beer float too," Sarah said, almost loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear. Miss Matthews just laughed. "You got it, Miss Lady." Miss Adams flicked Sarah's forehead. "Copycat," Miss Adams said. "And quiet down. It's rude to disturb the other customers," Selena scolded, causing Sarah to sink into her seat. John just laughed, making Sarah pout and kick his leg under the table. "Ouch!" John yelped. This made Sarah smirk. John frowned and pinched her arm. "Ouch!" Sarah yelped, then kicked him back. Ouch! John yelped. This time Miss Adams nudged Sarah. Stop it! Sarah pouted in her seat until the drinks finally came. Here are your beverages, Miss Matthews said, taking the drinks off the tray one at a time and placing them in front of each person. Sarah's expression changed. She was back to her usual hyperactive self. Thank you, Miss Matthews, Sarah said, followed by everyone else at the table. Thanks, I can't wait to knock these back, Selena said, taking the tops off each cup. She drank half of the Sprite and topped it off by pouring the alcohol in with it. You should be a bartender. You're natural at it, Miss Matthews laughed. Please don't indulge her. In a few minutes, she'll be like a college girl at a house party, Miss Adams said, sipping from her straw. Miss Matthews' eyes grew wide. It's that bad? Miss Matthews looked concerned. It's that bad, Miss Adams said, watching Selena begin to chug down a cup. One sip has caused her to completely forget that she's doing this in front of her students and mother, Miss Adams said, glaring at Selena, causing Miss Matthews to laugh. I'm not drunk. I'm completely fine, Selena said, stuttering and slurring. Miss Matthews laughed. Damn, already? Miss Adams nodded and took another sip of her drink. No more for her then, Miss Matthews said, taking her pad and paying out again. Okay, have you decided on your meal? Miss Matthews said, looking around the table. Get me the steak with green beans, corn, and a roll, Miss Adams said. I'll have the baked chicken with macaroni, greens, and cornbread, Sarah said cheerfully, obviously excited to finally eat. Selena, order something, Miss Adams said, kicking Selena under the table. Selena yelped, Ouch, I heard you. I'll have... Selena looked like she was having trouble keeping her eyes open. Finally, she ordered, I'll have the ham with macaroni, asparagus, and cornbread, she said, almost dropping the menu on the floor, but struggled frequently to catch it. I'm sorry, Selena said. Her eyes were doughy. Miss Adams sighed. Girl, don't you start that drunk crying. John laughed, but all that went out the window when she really started crying. I want to thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me to your restaurant and letting me teach Jose, Selena said, making her mascara run. Miss Matthews hurried to wipe her face with a napkin. Sweetheart, it's okay. I'm honored to have you all here, but you gotta calm down. You're ruining your pretty makeup, Miss Matthews said, wiping Selena's face. Miss Adams sighed. Girl, you are something else. I'm gonna go to the girls' room. Be right back, Miss Adams said, leaving the table. Sarah blushed and held her face, feeling full of embarrassment. John just laughed. Who is Jose? Sarah blushed more. Please, no. Miss Matthews laughed. I'll be back, Jose. I'm going to get your food. Same as usual, I assume. John frowned. Yes, and really? Miss Matthews just looked back and smiled. This caused Sarah to laugh. Jose is a funny name. John rolled his eyes. Sally, call over a waiter, Selena said, laying her head on the table. Sarah frowned. Who is Sally? This caused John to laugh. Call a waiter, Sally. Sarah kicked him again under the table. Ow! John yelped. You call a waiter, Sarah demanded. Why me? John demanded. It's your mom's restaurant. John just rolled his eyes and started to look around the room. Suddenly he saw Lou. Hey, Lou, John called across the room, but Lou didn't hear him. John started to call for him again, but cutting him off suddenly. Hey, Lou, we need service over here, Sarah announced loud enough to cover the whole room. This made the whole room look up across the room. But when they saw Sarah, some returned to their meals. Others ran it to themselves amongst their families. Look at those kids with their alcoholic mother, a man whispered. Those poor babies, another woman said. John didn't know if this was funny or headache-inducing. Eventually, Lou finally made his way across the room. Hello again. How may I be of service? Lou said, standing straight with his hands behind his back, head high and his shoulders low. Selena finally raised her head. She looked like she had no idea where she was. Can I get a bottle of red wine and a cup of water? Selena said. Suddenly, she sounded more alert. Sarah looked worried. Selena? She tried to get her sister's attention, but Selena wasn't listening. You probably shouldn't order any more to drink, Sarah tried to reason with her sister. I'm grown, little girl, Selena scolded. Lou looked at Selena. He was stunned by her beauty. I'll be right back with it, Lou said, leaving. Sarah's probably right, John said. Johnny boy, I'm fine, just relax. It was only a cup, Selena said, looking like she was ready to fall asleep, causing John and Sarah both to sit quiet. Eventually, Lou came back and set the bottle down in front of Selena. I'll add this to your bill. The bottle is yours to take home with you, Lou said, bowing, then turning to leave. Selena poured a glass, then began sipping from her wine, and last a sip from her water. Finally, Miss Adams came back. Selena, who told you to order a bottle? Miss Adams scolded. Selena took another sip. Mom, relax. I only had one cup, and it was my first cup of the day, Selena said, seeming a bit irritated. Miss Adams frowned. That's the point. You had one cup, and you already sound like a dumb broad, Miss Adams said, glaring at Selena. Mom, it was rum and vodka, so it makes sense that I'd be a little tipsy. I wish you would pour a cup so you'll hop off my ass, Selena said under her breath. Miss Adams turned red and slapped her across the mouth, almost making her spit out some of the wine. Watch your damn mouth when you talk to me, little girl. You may be grown now, but I will not take the disrespect from a 20-year-old child living in my house, Miss Adams said so calmly but stern. It sent shivers down John and Sarah's spine. John and Sarah just sat there quietly listening. Finally, Miss Matthews and Luke came back with food. Here you are. I hope you all enjoy your food, Miss Matthews said, placing the plates down. You know this girl ordered a bottle? Miss Adams said, looking at Miss Matthews for support. Miss Matthews looked confused. I didn't serve her. John, who served this? Miss Matthews asked, looking at John for answers. John just stared back, unsure of what to do. It was me, Miss, Lou said. Oh, Lou, this girl is drunk right now, Miss Matthews scolded Lou. She looked fine when she ordered it. Miss Matthews smirked. She looked fine now, did she? Lou blushed. Miss, please, I just mean her health. Miss Matthews laughed. I'm just kidding, Miss Adams. Don't worry. I won't charge you for the bottle. Call it thanks for picking my son up, getting him fed, and taking him home. Miss Adams' eyes widened. No, I wasn't implying. Miss Matthews laughed. Miss Adams, it's no worries. How about we girls get together one day and have a drink? Miss Matthews said, patting Selena's shoulder. Miss Adams smiled. I'd like that. Miss Matthews nodded. Selena, I thought you were done for. I guess you're not lightweight after all. Selena sipped her wine and smiled. Nope, Miss Matthews. It's just been a long day. Miss Matthews nodded. Okay, I've got other things to do. Lou will hold your bill. Oh, and John, when you get home, lock all the doors, check all windows, and make sure to leave the kitchen lights on. Miss Matthews looked at John for confirmation. John nodded. I understand. Miss Matthews began walking away but stopped in her tracks. Also be in bed by 9. John nodded, and before long she walked back into the kitchen. John started to eat, but suddenly he had to go to the restroom. Be right back. Everyone nodded as he jumped up to head towards the men's room. After he washed his hands and came out, he ran into Selena. Sorry. Oh, Selena, are you okay? John asked, concerned for Selena. Pretty embarrassing, a grown woman being slapped like a child in public, but I'll manage, Selena said, leaning against the wall in front of John. It's pretty embarrassing being seen with you arguing with your mom in public, John said. Selena frowned. How would you know? You're a child. You have no clue what it's like having to work, no longer having time for yourself and having everyone ride your ass all day to be an example, Selena scorned. John frowned. Maybe I do because you do the exact same thing to Sarah. You force standards upon her because you want to always see her do her best. Sin's eyes widened. Suddenly, she started tearing up and looking down at the ground. John apologized, causing her to giggle. She wiped her face and hugged him. You know, you act awkward and shy, but you really tell it how it is. If you learn to be like this more often, you're going to drive the girls crazy, John. John was paralyzed again. Her words rung in his mind like a clock. Suddenly, she released him, then walked into the restroom, and before the door closed, she smiled at John, leaving him thunderstruck. These women are something else, John said, composing himself, then walking back out to the table where Sarah and Miss Adams were. Chapter 8. In the middle. Selena returned to the table after a while. When she came back, she looked a little bit more composed, but you could see the exhaustion in her eyes. Miss Adams, however, was finally starting to let loose. She grabbed Selena's glass and took a sip. Mom, you're driving, Selena said, moving the glass further away after Miss Adams sat her down. Please, unlike you, I'm not a freaking lightweight. However, even if I was, I could have asked you to drive, but sadly, you left your poor mother to fend for herself, Miss Adams said, looking down her nose at Selena. I can drive, Selena said with her shoulders, holding her head up at the table. Looking like that, you'll do no such thing, Miss Adams said, crossing her arms. Mom, I just got off work. This isn't the wine, Selena said, rubbing her temples in annoyance. Miss Adams scoffed. Certainly, you must have it so hard living rent-free where your food and living expenses are taken care of by your parents. Selena glared at her mother. I pay bills, Miss Adams scoffed again. What, your phone bill? Selena started to say something but stopped when she remembered John and Sarah were sitting right there. Sarah stared at her plate, pretending nothing was happening, and John watched on as the expression on his face spoke volumes. Selena sighed. Look, can we just go home? I'll drive for real. Miss Adams rolled her eyes and started rambling through her purse for the car keys. Don't kill us, Miss Adams said, handing the keys to Selena. Selena rolled her eyes. Mom, I think you're the one letting the wine get to you. Miss Adams sat there silently before taking a sip of water. This made Sarah laugh, which in turn made John laugh. Selena smiled as she sipped the rest of her water, and finally Miss Adams had a smile across her face. Okay, children, let's hit the road, Selena said, grabbing Miss Adams' purse, along with her own purse, and pushing in her chair. When they got back to the Adams house, Sarah begged her mother to walk John home. Mom, please, I want to say bye to John. Sarah gave her mother the puppy dog eyes, but Miss Adams was not having it. No, Sarah, John lives next door, and it's too late for you, a young lady, to be walking the street. Sarah pouted, then Selena sighed. John is young too, plus it's only next door, so I'll walk him home, and Sarah can come with me. Miss Adams didn't look happy. She just turned and opened her door. Do what you want, is all she said before slamming the door, then leaving. Selena sighed again and rubbed her forehead. Okay, let's go. But when we get back, Sarah, bath and then bed. Understood? Selena pointed at her sister, who had her hands up, as if a loaded gun was being pointed at her. Okay, I understand, Sarah said before opening her door to get out. When Sarah closed her door, Selena exhaled. John was concerned for her, but he didn't pry. Listen, my bad about our mom. She gives me a hard time already, but as soon as she drinks, it's like she's a trashy drunk. John shook his head. No, honestly, it's fine. Selena looked down for a moment before finally forcing a smile. Shall we go then? John nodded and opened his door. Selena finally got out, and Sarah was waiting at the end of the driveway, tapping her foot impatiently. What's the hold up, people? We're losing daylight. John snickered. Selena rolled her eyes. But it's night. Sarah just laughed. I know, I just wanted to say that. Selena laughed. Silly girl. John walked behind them with a smile on his face. Hey, thanks for walking me back. I appreciate it. John said. Selena turned her head and smiled. Don't mention it. This loser just wanted to stay up longer. Sarah smirked. Guilty. John turned pale. So I'm being used? Selena laughed. Take pride in the fact that two lovely ladies are walking you home. John laughed. Yeah, I guess I just got it like that. Selena smirked. Oh, really? You're quite confident. I wonder where this was at when your mother found us earlier. John turned pale again. Shh. Selena laughed. Sarah just looked confused. What happened earlier? John almost died right there on the spot. He didn't understand why, but he did not want to tell Sarah about the joke his mother had made about it looking like he brought all three of them out on a date. He looked at Selena for support. Selena turned her head and covered her mouth to hide her laughter. Sarah grew impatient. Well, what happened? John stuttered. Well, earlier, you see, this thing is, Sarah barked at John. Well, are you going to tell me or what? Finally, Selena chimed in. Miss Matthews said John had a booger on his nose and he didn't want you to laugh at him. Sarah was quiet for a second, then she burst into laughter. Your mom still has to clean your face for you? John rolled his eyes. It's not that funny. Sarah started slapping him on the back. Geez, Sarah, I won't tell you anything either if this is how you act. Selena said, walking behind John. Sarah bit her lip. I was just kidding, Sarah said, kicking her feet. They stopped in front of John's house. Selena let out a big yawn. I guess it's about time we hit the sack. Tomorrow we got school. Selena said, walking around John's yard, surveying the area. Wow, this house is pretty nice. Selena nodded to herself. John rolled his eyes. Please, I bet you've seen this house plenty of times. Selena scowled. I was talking about the inside. John laughed. Sarah was confused until she thought about it. Suddenly, Sarah burst into laughter. Selena frowned. What's so funny? John gasped. That's creepy. Selena turned red. I didn't mean it like that. John prattled on. Sarah, watch out. You fall asleep at night near a creeper. Sarah turned pale. Ew, just thinking about it makes me shiver, Sarah said, pretending to quiver. Selena slapped Sarah's back and John's head. Be quiet, buttheads. Sarah rubbed her back. Dang, sis. John snickered. I'm just kidding, but you do know that's assault. Selena flinched. John smirked. Assault on a minor by a teacher. Selena groaned. Just let me off, please. I'm tired. John enjoyed teasing Selena after the way she had messed with him all night along with his mother, but he did appreciate her helping him step out of his bubble, along with Sarah, who helped a lot also. Well, we're going to head home now. See you tomorrow, John, Selena said, stretching and turning to leave. John waved. See you tomorrow. Sarah followed behind her sister, who was already walking away and waving back to John. Bye, John. See you tomorrow. Sarah stopped to turn around and wave. Bye, John. Selena and Sarah proceeded back home, and John decided he would turn in after following his mother's instructions to lock all the doors, check all the windows, and to leave the kitchen light on. It was 10 a.m., so Miss Matthews would be home within another hour. After taking a shower, John went to sleep. The next day, early in the morning, the sun hadn't yet risen. Something began to shake John. John, wake up. John. My God, you sleep just like your mother, John's mother said, sitting on the side of his bed, gently shaking him. John, wake up. John's mother frowned, then she raised her hand and covered her mouth to muffle her giggle. Then she slapped John's butt. Ow, John said, almost jumping out of bed. Good morning, love. John groaned. 5 more minutes, John said, putting his face into the pillow. John's mother frowned and began shaking him again. You gotta get ready for school. John groaned again. Okay, 2 more days. John lifted up and said, then laid back down. John's mother was out of patience. She grabbed him by his ankles and dragged him out of bed onto the floor. Ah! John hit the floor, causing a big thumping sound. Ow, that's child abuse, John said, rubbing his knee like it was hurt. You better start getting ready before I finish you off, John's mother said with a straight face. This made John turn pale and quickly jump up and run to the bathroom from the room. You could hear Miss Matthews still shouting at him. You better not fall asleep in that bathroom. I'm going to come wake you up with toilet water, John shouted down the hallway from the bathroom. I'm only brushing my teeth. John squirted toothpaste onto his toothbrush and began brushing his teeth. Suddenly, there was a knock at the back door. John heard his mother answer, and it was Sarah. Good morning, Miss Matthews, Sarah said. John was confused. Why was Sarah here this early in the morning? John spit out his toothpaste and hurried back to his room to get dressed. Good morning, Sarah. Come on in. How are you doing this morning? Miss Matthews said. Sarah walked in and looked around as Miss Matthews closed the door behind her. I'm doing good, Miss Matthews. How are you? Sarah said, turning her attention back to Miss Matthews. I'm doing good, Sarah. Thanks for asking. Is your mother doing all right this morning? Sarah nodded. Yes, actually, she got up this morning and rushed to work for some reason. Miss Matthews nodded back. I guess her and Selena had an early morning. Sarah nodded but went back to looking around. Where's John at? Miss Matthews smirked and shook her head. Sadly, unlike the rest of us, he's not much of a morning person. Sarah laughed. He's still sleeping? Miss Matthews laughed and shook her head. One good elbow drop is all it takes. Sarah burst into laughter. Dang, Miss Matthews. John finally came down the hall. She forgets to tell you who I got it from. Miss Matthews turned red. I'm better now. John scoffed. I used to have to beat you with a pillow to wake you up for work back then. Miss Matthews put John in the headlock. Boy, I work long hours. If you don't be quiet. John wiggled around trying to escape his mother's headlock. Help, Sarah. The evil demon is trying to make an attempt on my life again. Sarah laughed. I'm innocent. This is your battle, young commander. John pulled at his mother's grip. You're no help. Miss Matthews laughed. No one can stop me. I make cute little girls like her tremble in my presence. John laughed. You're having way too much fun choking out your son. Miss Matthews spun John around and locked back up the headlock. It's more fun than Plan B. John laughed and started to tickle his mother. She burst into laughter. What was that? John said, tickling his mother, who was dancing away from him, but he chased after her. Spare me, please. You know I can't handle being tickled, Miss Matthews said, trying to restrain John's hands. Say you're sorry, John said, wrestling with his mother. Just when John thought she would say it, instead, before he knew it, he was the one pinned down. You got a few more years, a few dozen more steaks and veggies before you have what it takes to defeat your mother. John scoffed and looked in the other direction. You're evil. Miss Matthews laughed. Aw, are you pouting? John turned red. No. Miss Matthews hugged him and snuggled her face against his. Yes, you are, you little loser. John struggled to get away and reached his hand out to Sarah. Help, the demon's starting to get attached. Sarah couldn't stop laughing as she watched to it. Miss Matthews kissed John's forehead. But Mommy loves her little hellspawn. John kept struggling. I'm not letting you go till you say you love me, Miss Matthews said, holding John tightly. John stopped struggling. I love... John stuttered and looked at Sarah, who was standing there with a big smile on her face. Miss Matthews giggled. Don't let Sarah stop you. John turned red. Finally, he said it. I love you, Mom. Miss Matthews was smiling ear to ear. Finally, she let go, and John got up and ran off. Even though you're a butthead, Miss Matthews frowned and chased after him. Boy, when I catch you this time, I'm going to change my status from single mom to single woman. After John gathered his school things, put his shoes on, and they all ate breakfast, Miss Matthews took John and Sarah to school. Thanks, Miss Matthews, for bringing me to school, Sarah said, getting out of the car in front of John. Miss Matthews nodded. No problem, Sarah. John, be good, and you two have a great day. John nodded and waved. Bye, Miss Matthews. Sarah waved as Miss Matthews drove away. Another day, eh, John? Sarah said. John nodded. Yep, let's get to it. Sarah nodded. You know we got a test tomorrow. John shook his head and groaned. Why did you remind me? Sarah giggled. My bad. Don't worry, though. Remember, I said I'd fill you in today on all the answers before tomorrow. John exhaled out of relief. Look, Chris, it looks like John really does got game. It was Ethan with Chris. Ethan was pointing and laughing. Chris didn't look interested. Okay, so what? Ethan looked dejected. Chris shook his head. I don't really care about that. Chris walked towards the school and Ethan followed behind him. Before they were out of sight, Chris looked back at John as their eyes met. John was concerned because he didn't know Chris's intentions. Sarah was confused. Did something happen? John shook his head. I don't know, John said. John was curious but quickly let it go and began walking towards the school building. In front of the entrance, there were a bunch of students waiting for the bell, but John and Sarah walked by to go into the building. On the way in, John looked around. He saw Chris and Ethan with a few people from their class. Then he saw the girl, Lisa, sitting by herself on a bench in the corner. She was staring at him and not letting anything distract her. This made John feel sick. But suddenly his attention was on Sarah and he quickly forgot about Lisa. After making their way down to their hallway, Sarah sat down against the wall next to Selena's class. The hall was empty, and compared to the rest of the school, it was quiet. Just how I like it. Quiet and completely empty, Sarah said, stretching her arms. John scoffed. What do you know about being quiet? Sarah puffed out her cheeks. I'm not always loud and hyper. John laughed. I gotta see it to believe it. Sarah frowned. Maybe you'll be the first person I stop talking to. John laughed, but before he could even say anything, Hey Sarah, mind if I join you?